pharmacist. So these are organizations which supply patients with their necessary medicines in order to treat their illnesses. And yeah, she's going to talk about medical marijuana dispensaries and some other stuff. So here's Twenty Jes.
So first of all, I want to thank Stephen and his friends and Ted for inviting me here. Really appreciate it. It is the Halifax Compassionate Club, in case you're looking for us. You can find us on Facebook. It's also the TC Club Pharmacist, which is kind of a funny name, but it's what we do. And I can't really talk too much about other dispensaries in Canada, but I can definitely talk about the one that we operate, since that's the only one I have experience with. So, I'm a cannabis license holder. I also hold, that's a license to possess as well as a license to produce. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and although I look really able right now, I eat copious amounts of cannabis every day, and I'm quite disabled without it. What else can I tell you before I go on? My partner is Chris Enns. We're engaged. He's a lovely guy. And Marcel was saying to me earlier about, you know, careful who you cite as your inspiration for starting up the club and the dispensary. And I thought about it, and I have to say, it's not who I thought it was. It's really Chris who is the inspiration, because, you know, I'm a skeptic, hardcore. And when people told me that cannabis cures things and heals stuff, I was like, of course it does. You know, it makes you feel better. If you feel better, you heal better, right? I didn't have any clue about the actual medicinal properties of cannabis. I'd smoked cannabis since I was 12, probably. It's always been in my life. It's never been forbidden, other than by the government, to me. It was never advocated by my family members, but you know, they're pretty clever, and they know the prohibition never worked, right? So when I met Chris, he was just sort of quitting Dal because he was really disappointed about the fact that he wanted to go into medicine and nobody would talk to him about the endocannabinoid system. Cannabinoid, you have 5 seconds and that'll self-destruct. And so slowly but surely he removed my skepticism, and he showed me study after study. And luckily for me, he has the talent to decipher those studies and explain them to me patiently. And so I'm no longer a skeptic, because at that time I was quite sick, and here I'm not sick. So I guess that's the final proof, right? So, you know, like how our club started really was, here's a group of friends, they all smoke weed, and none of us have a decent, consistent source. And so we formed what might be called a buyer's club, and might be called the early forms of a compassion club. And I would probably guess that many of you are involved in a very similar situation right now, in some way or some form, so, or else you probably wouldn't be here. So, and I can't imagine that there's too few of you who haven't tried at least medicating once, and I think the statistics show that it's pretty common for Canadians nowadays to at least try. So when Chris and I teamed up, we actually got turned on to the whole Rick Simpson movement. We met Rick, we got involved in a political pressure group, but you know, Chris having a medical background and being very interested in nutrition, we really wanted to focus on the medical aspects of cannabis and less the political aspects, which seemed a much more dismal future, really. Yeah. And so the medicinal side of it seemed to, you know, have some hope. And so what we did was we formed a club, legitimately, I guess is the best way to say it. We registered as a Nova Scotia nonprofit society. You know, we question whether it's required or not to register the club. You can have a society, you don't have to register with the government. It's not until you start taking funds and they worry about dollars and cents that it really is necessary. So we weren't taking in funds at the time, but we wanted to get that little bit of validation that comes from playing into the system. When we were talking to other professionals, like physicians and lawmakers and people like that. So we registered. By nature, I'm not one to do things like that, get involved in the government if it has any, you know, I'm very far away from that. I try to live out in the country. I'm off the grid somewhat. I don't play into those kind of things. So it's been a real challenge for me personally. I come from a long line of great artists. I'm sort of a mediocre artist so far, and I wanted to work on that, but so far this is sort of sidetracked me. And I'm really lucky. I'm a little bit disgruntled sometimes when I don't want to get up in the morning. I'm used to being totally without any structure all my life. And so running a business has been a real learning opportunity, and I totally recommend it to everybody. Why we decided to open a dispensary eventually, because we were just a club at first, and we were really sharing resources more than anything. Sharing doctors, sharing legal findings, resources, internet sites, I mean anything we could share that would promote the medical side of cannabis, we were there. And so I'm lucky to have some friends who referred a lot of people who were in legal situations, got busted, and couldn't get a license. And since I have a license, and I started to become representatives for the patients to Health Canada on their applications. And so I gained a lot of experience working with Health Canada, and that is probably the craziest experience in my life. It's and just as a tester, I was doing an article on a product that's being banned right now. It's called neem. Neem oil is being banned from the hydro shops all across Canada. There's my fiance also owns the Grow Up shop. It's a hydro shop that's down below the dispensary. And when neem is about the only product on the market that can really successfully fight spider mites, and spider mites are all of our cannabis growers' enemy. And so it's a big concern. So in my doing this research for a magazine that I write for, I found that all these other industries that I contacted were functioning quite well. They were calling me back right away. They were answering the phone. They were answering all my questions, leading me to all the right places. But when I came to Health Canada, and my last, I think it's almost 6 years now, experience with dealing with them, it's ridiculous. I can't imagine how something becomes so convoluted and mismanaged and micromanaged to like infinity. Like it's just the most, and it's hard, you know, maybe when you're a conspiracy theorist by nature, it's hard not to assume that it's on purpose, because it's the most real. Today, or not today, this week, I received my license back when it was up for renewal, and they sent it back to me telling me that rheumatoid arthritis is not arthritis, and so it doesn't fit in the arthritis section of the form, and so they sent it back to me so that I could put it in the section where it doesn't actually fit. So that's just one example.
But you got to tell them the rest. For the last 5 years,
it's
been that form.
Yeah, for the last 5 years, they processed my application without a problem. Except for once, I forgot to write the word fence, and then they send it back so I could write the word fence on it, and then, you know. And so delaying, and how they do this, I mean, what happens is I end up, because I'm not always timely, I maybe sent it in slower than I should have. I should have sent it in 6 months before it was due, and then it might have been there on time. So then you end up walking around with no license, and essentially getting illegally all the time, which is not a problem for me, because I love to challenge the law. But I was, you know, when I've been without a license for a little while now, so it would be interesting if I got arrested, I would kind of appreciate it. So, I'm in good health, yeah, right? I can totally spend a night in jail. I'm prepared, right? And I totally, if it were to happen to me, of course, I would challenge all of it and, file applications to get my medicine back and be a big thorn in everybody's side. And so they
Good for
tend to
you.
leave me alone. Although I was arrested for carrying a tomato plant down the road last year. Because they assumed it, the police officers assumed it was cannabis. So you can see that having a compassion club, and being that person makes you a target, right? I was known now as the cannabis leader in this community I live in East Chesapeake, and we're well known for cannabis growing there. And in fact, a doctor has been heard saying, you don't want to get a Health Canada license. You just go to East Chesapeake. One of your friends has got weed there. It's probably better. So when we moved there, I guess we fit right in. And in fact, we fit in so much that I have green lights outside my house, because if you're a cannabis grower, you know that a green light does not interrupt the photoperiod of your plants, which is necessary for the growth of your plants. It's your night cycle. And so I have green lights outside, so that all my bushes and trees look all pretty, and I have a great garden.
Yeah.
And the rumor in the community, because we're fairly new, the rumor in the community is that my green light is on, cannabis is for sale, and if the green light is on. So I thought that was rather funny, and it was probably a good reason to take the dispensary out of my house and move it into a physical location. So finding a physical location is something, another experience to wonder at. Like, just imagine walking up to something and saying, how much is your rent? What's the lease like? How many square footage do you have? I hope to sell cannabis illegally here, right? Because it's, no matter what, even if I pass a joint, being a license holder, to Marcel, who's another license holder, this is still trafficking. So, we're always sort of operating in this gray area. Of course, we are ready to fight and argue that. And the best argument is that we almost have 1,000 patients now who are in desperate need of medicine and a good supply that they can, and not just a good supply, but people who are educated and they can trust them, and they, for instance, I'm the one who educated, and Marcel, I'm sure, has educated his physician. I'm the one who told my doctor the difference between indicas and sativas. How does there's a drastic difference. I mean, when you're smoking M39 off the street, nobody can tell what you're smoking, and lots of people have smoked that for years and continued to think there was only one kind of cannabis, it was green, right? And so when you get deeper into into the specific strains and seeing how greatly different they are, and how they affect everybody's medicinal needs so individually, so you would think that this would be something important for the doctors to know, but they're totally uneducated. So it's really up to the dispensaries to educate the patient, because you can't expect the doctor to educate them. They're not educated in nutrition, but that's where you go to your naturopath for. So they're not educated, on the strains of cannabis, let alone indicas and sativas. They can't tell you what it means when something is maybe an indica or a hybrid, but it's just slightly sativa dominant, or maybe you don't want to take a sativa because it'll keep you up all night. And some people have no idea and then smoke weed expecting to chill out, end up hyper, have an anxiety attack. And then, the medicine itself doesn't get a fair chance because nobody's been educated on how to use it and how to choose it. So, obviously the patients are the inspiration for the physical dispensary, but more than that, we were looking for we have a cancer clinic every 2 weeks. Nova Scotia is riddled with cancer. We actually give away free meds to the people that come to our cancer clinic. It's been a great success, I guess. It's hard to call a great success, a group of people afflicted with cancer coming together into one place, a great success. Sorry, I'm a little struck for a second. A friend of mine just passed away yesterday, a couple of days away. And today is his wake. And, sorry. And he was a member of our cancer clinic. His name is Tom Crawford. And he came to us very late in his stages of cancer, and we did our best to help him. And but right to the end, he was a cannabis advocate. We did manage to clear up a lot of minor illnesses that he had just because he was consuming a lot of cannabis every day. So hopefully we really relieved a lot of his suffering. And we'll miss him a lot in the community. And he's an inspiration for us to continue. There's not nearly enough organizations supporting people in these situations. I don't know what it's like in New Brunswick. In Nova Scotia, you can't find a doctor. I think Judy says the same thing here in New Brunswick. You can't find a physician. They're replacing all the physicians with practical nurses who don't sign cannabis licenses. And so that's kind of a problem. As far as what are our biggest challenges, that's it, finding physicians really that advocate cannabis use, and some will say, yeah, sure, I think it's great to smoke cannabis, keep smoking it, that's great, no, I can't sign your papers. Others will say, I don't know enough about it. Some doctors have told patients, don't you know 1 cannabis cigarette is equal to 20 tobacco cigarettes? That's a common, stupid thing doctors say. Love to call out all the doctors that say all these things. It's just kind of sad that they underestimate the intelligence of their patients and their ability to find out the difference.
Very few in the Brunswick, that's not.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's getting much better in Nova Scotia, and the reason I know this is because our membership since like November June has doubled, like crazy. And doctors who were notoriously weren't signing before are beginning to. So obviously something's happening. I mean, they're starting to turn around, but places like the Family Focus have a no sign policy. Do you have Family Focus in New Brunswick? Yeah, okay, so it's those walk-in clinics where you don't have this is another replacement for the family physician, is the walk-in clinic where you just go in, you basically got your little number, you wait to be called, you see whoever is next. It's not, you don't get a doctor, right?
Well, we just call them after hours clinics here.
Is that right?
And
okay.
they won't prescribe anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, well, they can't, I mean, how can they? It's not, I don't really hold it against them because, you know, the way that Health Canada makes the medicine look, then, you know, how could they don't know the patient and they should have a history of the patient before they recommend anything to them, right? But how they can recommend anything to them without having a history, never mind, how can they recommend Oxycontins, or how can
You're
they,
saying for any
or sorry, they don't use that one anymore, but, you know.
Yes, they do.
Oh, they do?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, the generics a while back now.
oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
That's why our new ad.
so I've never taken any
Wow.
opiate, and like Gail, I have bad reactions to anti-inflammatories and other COX-2 inhibitors and stuff like that. So let me see. As far as what our club does, you know, we kind of are a little different in that our goal is to go out of business. We're sort of dreamers, and we hope that someday everybody will be educated about cannabis. And I have some friends who are 8, 9, and 10 who know almost as much about weed as me. They're really clever because their parents are medical users, and I can't wait for the DARE program to find them. And,
I'm sure they'll look.
So that's going to be great. I think Marcel knows a kid like that very well.
And DARE is actually removing.
Oh yeah, that's right. DARE is being removed from Canada. Yay.
Yay.
So,
It's now going to teach her about barbiturates and things.
yeah, right. That's
Send it to
right.
DARE.
So yeah, so education is obviously the key, and that's sort of the way we look at it. If we educate everybody, then there's no reason for us to be here. We're not trying to really provide people's medicine as much as we want to teach how to grow it. If you don't want to grow it, we want to teach a neighbor how to grow it for you. We don't want to prepare your medicine unless you can't do it for you. So we have a lot of patients who are quadriplegics and paraplegics who, unfortunately, a dispensary isn't fully accessible. And although some of our patients in wheelchairs climb the stairs anyways, downstairs the grow shop is accessible. It has a ramp. And so we'll meet people downstairs, or we'll go right out to your car, or we'll drive right to your house. So one way or the other, we're going to get to you. We have a delivery service. that was kind of a weird, sketchy thing. It's hard to ask somebody to drive cannabis around and deliver it to people and put them in jeopardy. So it usually ends up being me or Corey here, who's our greatest volunteer. And because it's really, this is being in this sort of legal gray area where we're providing a service to the community that's absolutely needed, and yet it's told it's illegal. I guess it's hard to ask people to put themselves in that kind of jeopardy. So we really avoid asking the members who have young children at home to come and volunteer in the dispensary. We don't really disturb any families or things like that. It's been a challenge, all because of prohibition. Well, only because of prohibition. I don't have any problem going to my local health food store, having great conversations like I do at the Vapor Lounge with the guy that runs the shop, looking through the products, sometimes going away with education, sometimes the products themselves. Why should it be any different for cannabis? It's less toxic than potatoes, so it's kind of and it's true, right? There's a chemical in potatoes that causes inflammation that you don't notice when you're young. You can almost kill yourself without feeling it when you're in your early years, but as you get older, it causes damage to all your joints, and it's prevalent in most of the nightshade vegetables, and as people have arthritis, it's crazy painful. So, but cannabis is the exact opposite of that. It's absolutely the exact opposite of that. It's always nutritious, and it's always relieving my pain, even when I don't notice it. And it's always medicine, even if I enjoy it. That's my recreational medicinal argument there. It's always good for me. So. Yeah. It's always medicine. So, I just want to get to what our challenges are and what you guys can do before the computer loses it there. Initially our biggest challenges were things like cash flow and finding product, right? And so that was our biggest issue when we operated virtually, and mostly I had delivery. And once we opened the store, what we did was we told the patients that they could take their excess and sell it back to their club members, and we would put like a $1 fee on top of that and then sell it back to the members. And so now we have something like, I think today we probably have 25 strains, which is pretty crazy. Mostly for the longest time we only had 3 or 4 strains, and it was kind of irritating, but we were really worked well and hard, and Chris is, at growing the right things so that we had, one indica, one seed, sativa, one hybrid kind of options, and one cheap version for people who are trying to save money, and that's important too, So, so that was probably our biggest challenge. But we managed to gain enough, support and finances to start. We have what's called Cannabinoid Theater. We do a monthly public education program. There's a cancer clinic every 2 weeks that's sort of self-supportive. We have a grow clinic now that we just started, which is great because and it wasn't because we really planned these things. They all came out of necessity. Like, when, a patient comes and picks up their meds for the week, and then they're like, my seeds died again. I don't know what to do. You gotta show me how to do this. And it's one thing for a doctor to sign a license, and maybe you can watch some videos online, but really growing is a hands-on experience kind of thing. And don't believe anybody. There's not one way to grow. It's really about how to grow for your lifestyle. And it's the same with medication, specifically cannabis. There's not one way to consume the cannabis. There's many, methods and modality, and not everything is the same for everybody else. I consume, 10 grams or more of cannabis a day. Usually it's more. That might seem a lot, but a couple of capsules are packed with hash. A couple of capsules are packed with oil. I take a few more at nighttime because I sleep well. And I experimented, not purposefully, with not taking my medication for a while, and it took about 5 days before I was truly sick again and disabled, and it took about another 5 days before I was fully functional again, so that was quite a trip. experience. Because, you know, I've been healthy for like a few years now, really pretty able. Every once in a while I get sick, but so I never, it's almost like I forget that I have rheumatoid arthritis. And that's pretty amazing when I watch other people who are diagnosed alongside me and they're just crippling in front of me. So all those programs are great, public education. So like, where do you guys come in, right? And like, how can you, because the Canadian cannabis dispensary is an endangered species, right? Health Canada seeks to abolish it. I was told when I went to the Health Canada stakeholders meeting in Toronto, because I was denied an interpreter in Montreal, that the plan was for us medical users to go to the doctor, get some kind, they weren't really sure how they were going to do it. They sort of had a skeleton of an idea, and they wanted us to help them. That was their
They kind of spoke with everybody but the patients.
right. And when I was at this meeting, I went as the representative for the Halifax Compassion Club, but our club is, the club is the people. The dispensary is the store that the people run, right? But the club is actually the people. It's not a physical location. It's not. It's a society of like-minded people. And so I really like representing patients, and I'm a patient myself, so I'm quite angry about losing my right to grow cannabis because it's medicinal. I love to go in my grow room in the morning when I'm kind of stiff with a coffee cup and smoke a big joint and like talk to my plants, and it's a nice meditational thing for me in the morning. I get an excellent sense of accomplishment. When you're a sick person, that's one of the things that can suck you down into the vortex of hell, is when you just have no sense of accomplishment, not contributing to anything, no autonomy, you know, being so dependent on everybody. So I felt so blessed to be, or I still feel blessed to be able to, you know, grow cannabis, and I think it's important that we really hold on to that, because if we don't, the cannabis dispensary, I believe, is, you know, I could be wrong. It's hard to predict what the government's going to do. But I think it's really going to sort of dissolve, because the plan for the government, or Health Canada, is to turn it over to Industry Canada. And so while myself and Lori McEachern from the Medicinal Cannabis Patients Alliance of Canada were at this meeting, and it seemed like we were the only two people in the room who really were there fighting for the right to grow. We weren't ready to let go of the idea that no, we don't, you know, we have to move on from this. And so the other clubs really seemed like they were more concerned with whether they could advertise or sell seeds or so we could see that we were set aside a little bit. And so I think that's why it's so important, is because I'm not sure that everybody's backing us on this. I think a lot of people are very eager to get their hands on the new industrial licenses that'll be issued out in 2014. And I myself, with our club, will apply for this license. And the reason is, when the director of the program at the time asked me if I'll apply for the program, and my answer was, if you force us to.
Right.
Right? Because why would I give it up freely? So how do I tell my friend Betty, who is 75 and has a brain tumor, you know, that she can't grow her own weed in the backyard? The medical community can't do anything for her anymore. How do we do this? So the answer is for everybody get educated, right? Disinformation is our enemy. We have to educate yourselves. Read these books, read all the books that Ted tells you to read. Get educated, be the know-it-all about cannabis. Be careful not to try to preach it to deaf ears, because you just become annoying.
But you gotta wake up those deaf ears though.
Well, that's true, but they only do it on their own time. It's really important they sort of let them think it's their own idea. But get educated, really get educated, and have conversations, and start clubs like Hempology 101 and 420 clubs, and maybe a dispensary. Be very careful. Plan well, and talk about it, and you know. Just do your best, because I think it's a downward spiral if Du Maurier starts creating our cannabis supply. A patient came into the dispensary last week and said they heard a rumor that Du Maurier was going to be one of the new industrial suppliers. I don't know where these rumors come from, so it's totally, I'm not saying it has any foundation.
It's possible.
Yeah, it, absolutely. If I was an industrious,
Yeah.
you know, why wouldn't I? So anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope that I might have.
Any questions? Are there any
Yeah, is
questions?
there any questions?
You get seeds for you sell seeds to your patients?
We actually, we're kind of funny. We don't really want to be the supplier. We want to work with everybody else. So we have a friend who's a great distributor that you can trust. We work with all the head shops. We have everybody else's business card in our store. We are trying to be super inclusive. We think competition is great. So please start a cannabis club and like share your need with as many people as possible and try to keep the prices low and you know, because it's actually one of the medicines that are good for you. So, but anybody else?
Do any stores up in the East Coast sell them in their store? Like any of the head shops? Or
Store. I don't think so. I mean, I have to say, I've sold some seeds to a client. We bought some seeds from Neil Magnuson when he came down, and we resold them to a patient for $20 more, and gave that to the cancer clinic. So that worked. Yeah. Neil sat in our cancer clinic. It was lovely.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So yeah.
I was just wondering if you ever had any legality issues with the shop.
Not so far. We did have when we put on our PC's Cannabis Festival in August every year. We had somebody who must have realized that we were gone away for the weekend and smashed the back door. So the police had come to our store, but only to report to attempted break and robbery or break and entering, and it was kind of odd to see him opening the door for the patients, like in the smell of cannabis coming out the door, and you know. But I said to him, because he was very clever and he knew where the rock was that hit my window, what pile of rocks it came from, and he knew what degenerative group of young people he thought it was, and they were troublemakers. And I was like, wow, you really know what's going on, eh?
Only the person that threw that rock would know.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, and I said, you know, wow, you really know what's going on. He says, oh yes, we know everything. And I said, are you that guy that arrested me for carrying a tomato plant last year? No. Is that it? Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
How do you guys' prices compare to the street value?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure what street value is.
$10 a gram.
$10 a gram on average, yeah. Well, and here's a good thing about our dispensary. I have to boast a little bit. Is that we don't charge less if you buy more, right? Most of our prices range from $5 up on average, from $5 to $8. Our AAA quality is $8.50, and that would be like an organic strain that is almost white with trichomes. And so, yeah. Was there another question? Yeah.
Any idea why Nova Scotia has such a bigger number of medical licenses issued compared to other provinces?
Right. We have the highest number of cannabis licenses per capita of any of the provinces in Canada. And when you think of what goes on in BC, and how, you know, if you sit at just the library in Vancouver, like it's, you know, there's cannabis everywhere out there. I was just out there. It was so beautiful. But I don't know why it is. I know that Nova Scotia is notorious for the underground market and supporting it. We're a bunch of privateers by nature. Or, you know, I don't know why it is. I know that there's a lot of people don't come out with their cannabis as much in Nova Scotia. Like on the sidewalks, they've been sort of secretly growing in the basement for 20 years or in the back 40 or whatever. So I have no idea because we don't have the most number of licenses or doctors signing. I know that for a fact. So
We did at one point. We actually had more
what was
doctors.
That, 3?
No.
One more than the other
And this
provinces.
was about 4 years ago. We actually had more doctors per capita signing than
Really?
any of the provinces. We had more patients per capita. We just had a lot more people in the closet not coming out.
Right.
And now they want to get legal because if you're not legal and you're caught, well, you know the charges.
Right, and so we do have lawyers that refer like people in those situations to us, and we try to help them get their licenses as quickly as possible. I've been accepted as a cannabis expert in court in matters dealing with Health Canada, so.
I'm
so
not
I've
a
had
lawyer,
to-
but I help.
Yeah, I've had to testify and, saying that Canada, Health Canada is just ridiculous, yeah.
Do you really need a pain specialist doctor, or?
It's totally depends on what your illness is, and they divide it up into categories. I hear in 2014 they're going to get rid of the categories, but I'm not sure. There's like the magic 5 on the first part of it. There's a B form and a B1 and a B2, and the B1 is like HIV, MS, severe arthritis.
AIDS, cancer.
No, HIV, I said already.
AIDS,
Cancer and epilepsy.
But it's not there as cancer for curing cancer, it's there for the nausea.
Yeah, it's only
pain
cancer. You
associated
can only use it for
therapy.
nausea. Right. You can't actually kill any tumors. That would be bad. Right? It's not approved for that. So it's ridiculous. And so when I looked at my license that was returned, the doctor made the mistake of putting rheumatoid under the arthritis thing, and it must have confused the people at Health Canada.
Doesn't take much.
I can't tell you the number of patients I've spoken to, because I'm in communication with a lot of patients. The number of patients who said they've offered to work at Health Canada so they can move things along. Right? Yeah, there you go. We all know the program so much better than the employees, right? And I've had people at their caseworkers, or whatever you want to call them, say to me, for instance, a grower can't have a criminal record. And I'm like, well, yes, they can. They just can't have a criminal record for cannabis, which is ridiculous. Who knows how to grow cannabis? Somebody with a criminal record with cannabis. So, you know what I mean?
And you know something on that note? When they started this, way back when, they had this test project they did. They had, and I'm not going to disclose names, they had subjects that were volunteered as their test subjects. They provided the medicine for them.
Right.
And one of those people I know personally and has a record for cannabis.
Right.
So that's who they used for their test subjects.
Right.
And
But it's
he
not
has
good enough
his
to get a
license
license.
now.
Yeah, so you can see how the program's convoluted. If you've been convicted of murder, rape, pedophilia, you can grow cannabis for a disabled person. Right? For somebody, for a person who's, what's the phrase you say? Whatever, anyway, somebody who has challenges or maybe isn't able to care for themselves. In the States, they call them caregivers instead of growers.
Caregivers,
Yeah, I think that's much nicer. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. Thanks so much for your time.